We are reading Zero Limits by Joe Vitale and Dr. Hugh Lin. We are on chapter 8, page number 95 of the book and page number 95 of the PDF.
And here's another. As an interventionist, one of the largest obstacles that I help clients eliminate or navigate through is drama. In the Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, the concept of a controlled dramas is defined. We must face up to our particular way of controlling others. Remember, the fourth insight reveals that humans have always felt short of energy and have sought to control each other to acquire the energy that flows between people. Incorporating this concept into a more interventionistic model has allowed my own technique some intuition in cases where clients were distracted from their purpose or outcomes.
So we've been constantly talking about these control dramas in the Celestine Prophecy. The four control dramas are intimidator, interrogator, aloof, and poor me. Okay, these are the four control dramas. Now, basically, when you are in a control drama, what happens is that you're attempting to grab power from the other person. So he says over here, we must face up to a particular way of controlling others. Remember that the fourth insight reveals that humans have always felt short of energy and have sought to control each other to acquire the energy that flows between people. So when I'm in a control drama and the other person is also playing the control drama, I am attempting to grab energy from that other person. And it becomes a war, literally. One person is attempting to grab, then the other person will attempt to grab. And the intimidator and the poor me play the game together. And the interrogator and the aloof, they play the game together, right? So the intimidator will try to get Habi on the poor me, and the poor me will attempt to grab the power from the intimidator by saying that I am Deen, I am Dukhi, I can't do it, you have to help me to do it and all that. So both of them will attempt to grab power from each other. And then you will find that the roles get exchanged many times, where the poor me, after a certain point, if too much energy is grabbed from him, he will turn out to be the intimidator to grab energy back from the other person, right? And the interrogator will keep questioning you, keep poking you, so that you start paying attention to him. And the aloof guy will become aloof so that the interrogator pays attention to him. So again, that drama is also played all the time. And this is very, very pertinent, right? We have to start noticing if we are getting into the control drama play. If we get into the drama, we are creating a problem for ourselves. So we need to, and the way to get out of the control drama is to call it out. That say that, okay, I'm getting into a control drama, I need to step out. And the shift that is required is, and we keep talking about this also, that I would like to give the energy myself to you. You don't have to grab the energy from me, and you will give the energy to me yourself. I don't need to grab the energy from you. That is the state that we need to shift from. So the control drama needs to shift into giving and receiving rather than grabbing and taking.
Joe Vitale first introduced Ho'oponopono to me, though he may not actually know this. So on the one hand, I have the concept of drama or control dramas, and as an interventionist, I require a balancing out tool in order not to understand a client, but to assist the client back to full use of his or her resources.
So what is required over here, right? Many times what happens is that we want to control, or we want to find a cure, or we want to find a solution for the person ourselves. But what is the empowering method? The empowering method is that you help the person find the solution and implement it themselves. You don't go around implementing it for them. So you give the tool to the person and tell them that, see, you learned this tool. Now go and apply this tool. This used to happen to me a lot previously. I used to get calls at 1 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock at night, this problem, that problem. And I was really looking for something with which I could actually empower people. And when we started doing the Monroe process, I got what I needed. Now, most of the time, even if I get a call from someone, I'm constantly telling them that, see, you attended this program. This is a tool that you learned. Now apply this tool in this situation. Let me tell you, 95% of the time, the issue gets taken care of, or their perspective about the situation changes and they are able to handle that situation or find a solution for themselves. So it's very important that, instead of doing the work for someone, we empower them to do it for themselves.
Getting back to zero was the balancer I had not yet perfectly framed before Dr. Vitali led me into the world of Dr. Hugh Lin. In the Western world, especially the United States, our mainstream culture and its pervasive messages are all geared to get us to move from ourselves towards the flashy instant gratification of the consumer crazy world we live in. From 0 to 60 couldn't be any more perfect as a catchphrase to define the emotional movement of a world addicted to consumption.
So most of the time, we are all running all the time. And if you really ask yourself, why are you running? Right? What is it that you are really looking for? That is the question that we need to ask ourselves. And in a materialistic society, we are constantly in that frenzy of acquiring, of getting the bigger apartment, of getting the bigger car, of having more money in the bank, of living in the highest flat in the building, in the city, living in the most expensive apartment, buying the biggest property, right? Having the biggest manufacturing setup. We are all running all the time. So what we need to really observe is, what is it that we really want? Okay.
What Ho'oponopono has helped me understand is that healing and true fulfillment come from moving from 60 to 0. So many metaphysical constructs include the idea of detachment, but it never seemed like a complete or perfect concept to me. In some instances, trying to achieve perfect detachment just seemed silly. Now, however, with getting back to 0, I really grasp the dynamic of detachment and how to get there.
So in the previous paragraph, he said getting from 0 to 60. Now, if you take any car, how is the car's efficiency determined? How much time does the car take to go from a standstill state to 60 miles or 60 kilometers an hour, right? So we are all running, we are all pressing the gas pedal. But when do you really achieve fulfillment? When do you really achieve that state of equanimity? Is when you slow down and come down from 60 to 0. So everything will be happening around you. It's not that you stop doing things, right? Everything happens, but you're operating from that 0 state. So you're not attached to anything. Now, even in the Vedanta sessions, every time it's coming to tyag, detachment, right? Now, when you are doing a tyag, it doesn't mean that you stop doing everything. What it means is that you do everything, but you are not really concerned with the fruit of your action. You're not really attached to getting to another place. There is a flow in your system. It is not about achieving a particular goal, right? In the beginning, but when you start your journey, you have to have a goal. Otherwise, you're not going to move. But once you reach a certain state in your conscious evolution, after that, the goal must drop. It has to shift from goal setting into just being and allowing things to happen around you. So this is what he's saying. Getting back to 0, I really grasp the dynamics of detachment and how to get there. So you're attached, but you're attached with a sense of detachment. If you're attached and there's an emotional charge attached to that attachment, that is when the problem happens. If you are attached, but you're detached, then there will be no emotional connect to that system. अगर हो रहा है तो अच्छा है, नहीं हो रहा है तो अच्छा है. You know, we have to get into that state of consciousness. But having said that, we are still giving it our best shot. We are not pulling our punches. We are actually doing the best that we can. So we come back to the 4 agreements. With the 4 agreements, we said, be impeccable with your word. Do not make assumptions. Don't take anything personally and do your best. So you have to do your best in whatever you're doing. Okay. And let go of the fruit. That is what Tyag is all about. And in the sessions right now, today, I think he's going to talk at the 7 o'clock talk in chapter 18. The entire session today is going to be exactly about this only, about Tyag and detachment.
It's been 10 months since I had the good fortune to meet Dr. Hugh Len at Joe's interview with him high atop the Hyatt overlooking the Colorado River. Much has been transformed in me and in my family's life. All my parents and in-laws are suddenly making huge shifts in their patterns and discovering they have manifested their dreams on a grand scale. My in-laws have purchased a $500,000 home to retire in. That is one of the most peaceful places I've ever been, just down the road from Joe's house. My mother has worked through physical and emotional obstacles only to find herself marrying again and being very excited about her senior romance. I've suddenly had a stream of income shift myself in a field that didn't allow me to cultivate and demonstrate my greatest strengths. My father, 72 years young, has finally broken an income chain that had him commuting from Houston to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, fifth most northwestern town in the world, every 6 weeks. One of my oldest friends has completely uprooted a very set in his way life and come to Austin, where he is currently developing his own company and living a totally different paradigm. My brother in law is finally moving into his own home. My sister in law and her husband are moving from the suburbs onto a dream property themselves. My godniece, who just started high school this year, has already been in a prime TV series and was nominated as Homecoming Queen. And her mother has just been offered the most lucrative business opportunity of her life. All this has started and been brought to fruition since February 2006 when I first heard about Ho'oponopono. Suddenly, my day-to-day living is filled with experiences that are colorful and fun again, after having spent the past 17 years being serious and dreary. Life is a habit, so I've been acquiring the habit of a good life.
So what is he saying over here, right? So he's saying suddenly huge shifts in their patterns and discoveries and are discovering that they have manifested their dreams on a large and grand scale. So what is he implying over here? The moment he started getting himself cleared, he started clearing himself, people around him started seeing the effect in their lives. Okay, so now this is a huge implication for all of us. If we start clearing ourselves, then what will happen is anyone connected with us, there's a resonance from our field into their field. They will also start to get clear. Okay, this is what is meant by this. And then he says, suddenly my day-to-day living is filled with experiences that are colorful and fun. Again, after having spent 17 years being serious and dreary. So the same thing is happening. Nothing has changed. The only thing is that his perspective, the way he's looking at life, has shifted. So simply put, he has shifted from the left side of the grid to the right side of the grid. And then that's where the magic starts to take place. So, and then he completes with the comment, life is a habit. So I have been acquiring the habit of a good life, right? So what does he mean by that? Life is a habit. So whatever you practice, that is what is going to manifest in your life. So let us look at ourselves. What are we practicing? Are we constantly looking at what is going bad? Are we constantly looking at what is going good? Are we constantly looking to criticize everything? Or are we constantly looking to appreciate something? Are we constantly operating in lack, or are we constantly operating with gratitude? Where are we operating from? What is the state of consciousness that we are operating from? Once you start clicking into that and understanding that, that is what is going to create the shifts in your life. So life will go on, the same thing will happen. But what is the perspective with which you are looking at it is what makes the meaning of life come alive for you. So if you think you're having a good life, you're having a good life. If you think you're having a bad life, you're having a bad life. And the same thing may be happening, but if you shift your perspective, everything shifts.
I'm not in any way an expert on Ho'oponopono. It is still very new to me, and I will not predict where it leads my life experience. I am grateful for Dr. Vitali revealing the world of Ho'oponopono through the presentation that Dr. Hewlin made these short months ago.
Shimangala, please slow down.
Whether it be in my personal life with my beautiful wife or in my business life, reaching the zero state. 100% responsibility, apology, and forgiveness are powerful choices that have made a powerful impact in my life. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Dr. Hewlin. Bruce Burns.
So what is he saying very clearly, right? Reaching the zero state. So being in a state of equanimity, being in a state of zero, and taking 100% responsibility of whatever choices that he is making has totally shifted whatever is happening in his life. Okay, so the most important thing is that we need to take 100% responsibility. And once we start doing that, things start happening in our life. Because when you take 100% responsibility, you put yourself in charge. If you are playing the blame game or you're blaming someone else, then the charge has gone out of your hand. You're no longer in control. You've put the control in the other person's hand. But if you take responsibility, then you are the one in charge.
Dear Joe, I wanted to give you a great big thank you for bringing Dr. Hewlin to Austin. The program was wonderful, leaving me filled with new understanding about life and how universal laws govern our health and happiness. Please allow me to expand. First off, I want to say that I am certainly not an expert on the practice of Ho'oponopono. So please forgive me if I'm reading too much into what was shared. But here's what I walked away with after just one evening's experience. Mhm. Dr. Hewlin talked a lot about something very dear to my heart, the art of going to zero. In fact, this seems to be a centerpiece of Ho'oponopono. Being a martial artist and a Qigong teacher for many years now, I have come to regard this ability of cleaning and emptying the mind, going to zero, as one of the greatest gifts known to mankind.
So now just imagine a state where everyone is operating at zero. Do you think any kind of conflict will be there in the world? All conflict will suddenly drop. everything will just happen. People will constantly be looking out for each other. They will be doing the best, and nothing wrong will nothing wrong will happen. So the more people that understand the state of equanimity, the better off the entire world is going to be.
Dr. Hewlin reminded us of the importance of living in a state of openness, cleansing our internal reactions and going to zero. I was in complete agreement with his outlook on life and thrilled to meet another human being on this planet who shares about truths I have come to love.
So now what is he saying? Importance of living in a state of openness, cleansing our internal reactions and going to zero. When you are in zero, then nothing is hidden. You don't need to hide anything. You don't need to justify anything. There are no secrets because everything is open. And let me tell you seriously, from experience, I'm telling you, we think we can hide things from others. But really speaking, nothing is hidden. Everything is known. Okay. Through energetics, through intuition, you can get to know everything that is happening. And the other thing he's saying is cleansing our internal reactions. So many times, what are we doing? We are saying something and we are doing something else, or we are doing something and thinking something else. Now, these internal reactions are what actually drive your actions. So you have to be aware of what is happening inside, that inner dialogue. What is the record player running behind the scene? You need to stop that record player. Because when you are in zero, the record player cannot play. Why? Because you are just present. In the state of zero, you are just present. And that record player is always about the past or the future. So the more you cleanse yourself, the more you clean out the internal reactions and just come into a state of being, just be present. That's when the shift starts to happen. And that's when you hit the zero state. So naturally, again, if everyone goes into that state, all conflict in the world is going to drop.
In the art and practice of Qigong, internal martial art energy exercise, there is a very specific way to breathe and circulate our body's internal energy. The ancient martial arts master have discovered that there are universal laws working within our bodies, and when we learn how to move our internal energy in a circular fashion, we can create high levels of vibrant health and profoundly raise our consciousness. This process is often referred to as the microcosmic orbit.
So again, finding the center in martial arts, etc., there is something called the hara, which they say that is the energy center of the body. It is somewhere behind the navel, just around behind the navel in the center of the body. And this is something that I've seen when I go for energy field rectifications to people houses, etc., or in factories. If the hara is not set, then you will find a lot of laziness in the environment. People will not be doing what they are meant to be doing, right? So now, when we find that center, when we create that center within us, then everything starts to happen again. Now, when you look at the reball, when we did the reball, what happened? First, you do the resonant tuning and you circulate the energy inside your body system, removing all the blocks, etc. And then the energy is kept around the head and circulated around the head. And then when you create the reball, that energy is circulated out and then brought back into the field and then circulated, right? So when he's talking about here, we learn to how to move our internal energy in a circular fashion. We can create a high level of vibration, vibrant health, and profoundly raise our level of consciousness. So that's exactly what the reball also does. But of course, when you're really practicing it mindfully, then it becomes a different ball game altogether. Yes, Chachi? You have to unmute.
नाभि खिसकना जो हो जाता है, नाभि
हाँ
The same thing, no?
नहीं, नाभि सरक जाता है, वो एक्चुअली वही धरण सरक जाता है. So that is also when your dharan is moved out of its position, then your body system can't function properly. It's not exactly that, but it is something like that.
Similar.
Yeah, similar.
Fundamentally put, we breathe in and direct the life force energy inside the breath, down the front of our body into the lower belly region, an area known as the dantian. Next, we direct the energy up our spine and finally back around to the front. This ongoing process creates a microcosmic orbit within our energy body, uplifting our health and our consciousness.
So this is exactly what we just spoke about.
When Dr. Hewlin used a diagram to explain Ho'oponopono and show how communication and consciousness between people best flow in a circular direction, I was immediately struck by its similarity to the microcosmic orbit. In fact, it was off the charts exciting to see how the universe works with circles in a way I'd never realized before.
So it is not, he's saying circles over here, but it is more about spirals. Okay. All growth in the universe takes place with the spiral. So when every growth, if you see your DNA, it's a spiral. If you see the trees growing, they grow in a spiral. If you see a she cell, it's a spiral. The Earth's orbit is a spiral. The entire universe our solar system is moving in a spiral. If you see our galaxy, it is moving in a spiral. Our galaxy in the universe is again moving in a spiral. So spirals are there everywhere. He's saying circles, but it's more about spirals.
Through the diagram he finally drew, I finally understood how most of the time we try to relate to people in a bi-directional, linear fashion. We talk at each other, we argue, negotiate, point the finger, and so on. And this all takes place in a horizontal direction.
So everything actually has a pattern, right? What goes up will come down. So the point is that we need to create that exchange. Again, when things are moving in a spiral, they keep going up and down, up and down, up and down. And that's what creates the balance. So everything ultimately comes back into balance. So when we are operating from balance, that is when things start to stabilize in ourselves. That is when we get into zero. The moment we want to take more than what is due or give more than what is due, in both cases, there will be a problem created. So we need to start moving towards equanimity, towards creating that balance.
However, I saw that by moving in an entirely different direction, we could affect the greatest change and deepest connection with another human being. And that direction was a circle. For me, Dr. Hewlin's diagram showed that by first going to zero, down beneath the conscious layer of the mind, we can let go of our reactions and attachments to what we are perceiving. We can then begin to rise up towards the superconscious state and eventually tap into divine awareness. The divine can carry our clear and loving intention down towards the other person, basically sneaking in the back door of their conscious mind, allowing for a pure and unfiltered connection and relating.
So what is he meaning over here? When we start to raise our level of consciousness and get rid of all our attachments, our preconceived notions, our judgments, okay, about a particular situation, then that divinity will come into that situation to resolve whatever is not happening in the proper way. So what are we doing? We are handing over our issue to divinity and then allowing divinity to do whatever it wants with it and accepting whatever happens. So you are not attached to a particular solution or a particular thing. You allow what is happening to happen, but you hand it over to divinity. So if you see the crumb that he's written here, he says first you go to zero, right? Then let go of all your reactions and your attachments. Then tap into the divine awareness and carry clear and loving infinity or thoughts to that other person. So you allow that divinity to come into that other person or that particular situation, which will result in clearing that situation. So you're literally clearing yourself, going into a state of a higher consciousness, and then allowing it to manifest. So now if you see, what is the one breath technique about? What is the reball all about? We are taking a deep breath. We are shifting our state of consciousness, setting an intent and sending the reball, and then forgetting about it. It's no longer our business. It's divinity's business. If you see the one breath technique, you're taking a deep breath, you're going into a higher state of consciousness and throwing out that question into that state, and then just expecting and accepting whatever is coming, and then acting on it, right? So what are you acting on? You're acting on the divine direction without applying your brains and your head. Yes, of course, you have to develop a language to be able to understand what is being said to you when you're getting that answer for that higher state. In the reball, if your ego comes into the picture, then what is happening? Your judgment, your finger pointing is coming in. You have to let go of judgment, and then you have to allow, may the best manifest. So this is exactly what we are doing even in the Monroe process. It's slightly just, the terminology is very just different, that's all. But ultimately it's the same thing. When you go into F10 or into F12, what are you doing? You're attempting to hit the zero state, because those states, when you hit it properly, there is no thought. You go into a state of thoughtlessness, which is what zero is all about, just being present. That's all. So very similar, what we are using already in our day-to-day lives.
All I can say is it works like nothing else ever has. For example, just last week I was in a business meeting and the person on the other side of the table was asking for things that I initially felt were unfair and selfish. I caught myself tightening up within and I remembered the diagram and the benefits of the circular direction. So I decided to stop fighting and I just let go.
So now, as soon as he felt himself tightening, as soon as he felt himself feeling that it is selfish and unfair, which side of the grid did he go in? Okay, now I don't need to say it, it's the left side of the grid. And the moment he changed his perspective, let go, and just accepted what is happening and decided to stop fighting, which side of the grid did he come into? He came into the right side. Okay.
First, I connected to my breath and went to zero. Internally, I felt my awareness lifting up, just like the Qigong exercises that I described earlier. And my disposition changed immediately. If I had spoken what I was feeling inside, it would have been, I love and support you. Please forgive me for being hard with you. How can I help you to feel safe and help both of us get what we are wanting?
So again, the same thing, right? You're shifting your state of consciousness. You're shifting your state of awareness. So he shifted there and then changed his perspective about what he was saying. And the moment that shift comes, right, again, he's shifting from the left side of the grid to the right side of the grid. And I keep repeating that manifestation can only take place from the right side of the grid. If you attempt to do anything when you're on the left side of the grid, it is not going to manifest. So what did he do here? He immediately shifted and then he started saying, I love you and support you. Please forgive me for being hard at you. And how can I help you to feel safe so that we can create a win-win scenario for both of us? So in all the Monroe processes, whenever we are requesting for something, it is always win-win. It is never win-lose. Okay. it is always for the best to manifest. Whatever is right for the greater good, may that manifest. That is where we are coming from. And this is exactly what he is doing over here also, creating a win-win scenario so that they are both happy. If you have a win-lose scenario in a situation, no one gets out happy. So we have to create a win-win scenario where everyone is happy.
Next, something amazing happened. My friend, I was no longer seeing the person as an enemy or a threat, began to change, becoming much more open and receptive, as if having stopped struggling with some internal conflict. Within 15 minutes, we even came up with a solution to our previous dilemma, a solution that was perfect for us both, and one that I never could have conceived of in my previous state of mind.
So now he says, I was no longer seeing the person as an enemy or a threat. So when we go into coherence, right, this is something that we talk about in the Resilience Advantage program also. When we start centering ourselves, we go onto the right side of the grid, then we stop looking at things as a threat. We start seeing it as an opportunity. And the moment we start seeing things as an opportunity, we can start manifesting, we can start creating. So this is what he's done over here, right? He changed himself, and which automatically resulted in the change of the other person. And then we are not fighting, we are working together to create a win-win scenario or a win-win solution to whatever we are talking about. And this is one thing he says over here, and one that I could have never conceived of in my previous state of mind. So in the previous state of mind, he was operating from the small guy, the ego, right? The moment he let go and he shifted his state of consciousness, he was operating from the big guy. And naturally, the big guy knows much more than the small guy. So they found a solution which worked for both of them.
As the mysteries of life unfold, you begin to see how everything is connected. Everything comes from universal laws, and one of those laws is circles. In the movie The Secret, I remember you said that the universe likes speed. I would like to add that the universe likes circles too. And life certainly flows all the more smoothly when you know in which direction the circle wants to go.
So what he's saying here is that everything is interconnected and interrelated. So we keep repeating the statement that if a butterfly flutters its wings in Brazil, it affects the entire universe. So nothing can be separated from anything else. Everything is interrelated and interconnected. Now here he says that in the movie Secret, I remember you said the universe likes speed, but I think Joe Vitale changed his scenario that the universe likes to be, right? And once you are in that state of zero, then everything happens. You don't have to speed about doing things. Things systematically, and I'm telling you this from experience, things just start slotting in. Everything just works like a jigsaw puzzle and settles down very, very fast. It just falls into place. But we need to allow it to happen rather than fight it all the time. The more we are in allowing, the better off we are there. But many times what happens is that we want to control a situation. We want it to happen the way that we want it to happen. And we want to direct everything, right? And that's where the problem comes out. So we've got it written here when we were reading the shift also. He says entitlement to humility, control to trust, and attachment to letting go. So now if you add these three things also, many times we feel that we are entitled to this, that I'm entitled to the control, right? Rather, if we go into trusting that, okay, the system will work and bring that gentleness and compassion into us, all things will start to move beautifully for us.
So thank you again, Joe. The diagram Dr. Hewlin used to explain Ho'oponopono has been so helpful. Seeing this process in a diagram has given me a great insight and a wonderful tool to catch when I am forcing things versus letting go and responding to situations from a state of zero. Warmly, Nick Tristan Truscott Sensei.
So again, what is he looking at? That when I'm forcing things, so when you're forcing things, you're wanting to exercise control rather than allowing things to happen. The more we allow things to happen in our life, the better in the flow we will be, the better connected we will be to the zero state.
Every day since the May manifestation weekend, I say, I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me, and thank you. Nothing much has changed that can be easily observed, catalogued, or cheered, as I have currently a marvelous life. Of course, I would like a bundle of wealth so I could easily visit my daughters and family in Queensland and my brother in Paris and take my husband on the train ride of his dreams. And I like my novels to entertain the world, but these would be minor gifts compared to what I have now.
So what is she saying? What is she saying over here, right? That she has shifted from lack to gratitude. So she's saying clearly, I currently have a marvelous life. Okay. So she says over here, nothing much has changed that can be easily observed, catalogued, or cheered. But now I have a marvelous life. So nothing has changed except her perspective, except her attitude towards whatever is happening around us. And changing our attitude is something which is very much in our hands. It is very much within our control. It is very much within us to shift our attitude. No one can stop you from shifting your attitude about something. Okay, there is no restriction on you. So how you are perceiving something, it's all up to you. And the more you perceive from the right side of the grid, the better off you are going to be.
The invisible change is incredible. When I say I'm sorry, I truly do feel responsible for whatever is in my consciousness at the moment. I can no longer separate myself from people who disagree with me. I have never felt so connected. I am sorry for what I am doing on Iraq, for one. I hate to make phone calls, but I am making phone calls all over the country in case I can change what I am doing in Iraq. It helps me heal. Because I feel forgiven, I am so very grateful.
So we are all connected, interrelated. Now, whatever I'm doing, I do my best and forget the rest. Okay. And then I allow whatever needs to manifest. Then there is no force, there is no strain, there is no effort. Everything moves from effortfulness to effortlessness.
Blackout on Deer Canyon Road. Late afternoon, sudden silence. The absence of electrical humming can be humanizing. I felt electrically alive. No power in any room, in any house, up and down the street. No news of restoration. We bathed in the hot tub, dined outdoors on wine and cheese, and watched stars. A blackout on Deer Canyon Road in Arroyo Grande, California. Unusual, luxurious, so not like a blackout in Buffalo or Baghdad. Evelyn Cole, the whole mind writer.
So, what is she saying? Today, if you really look, that hum of electricity is always there. And we talk about this in the Vastu and Energy Field program. We are all living in something called a Faraday's cage. And in the Faraday's cage, when we are there, the earth energies, the cosmic energies can't get to us. And I think it's one of the biggest causes of stress in our life, right? Now, when the electricity shuts down, you can find that you can hear the silence. There is a silence which comes about, which is not there when the electricity is there. Okay, so this is what he's saying, that everything just slowed down, everything shut down. Today we are so dependent on electricity, it's not funny. But then again, it comes with its whatever it comes with.
After I learned about Ho'oponopono from Dr. Hewlin and Dr. Vitali, I found out that my business is about constantly cleansing. When I cleanse and get back to zero, business runs smoothly. I'm constantly clearing and constantly getting back to zero. And Dr. Hewlin taught me how to do that.
So it's not that we can be in that zero state permanently. Life happens, right? And then that is where our awareness, paying attention starts to come into the game. Whenever you start feeling yourself shifting, observe, you have to keep observing yourself. You need to put a tool in place which will stop you from shifting and getting you back to the right side of the grid or into the state of zero. So you have to be constantly aware. We have to constantly work on ourselves, constantly cleaning ourselves all the time. What am I thinking? What is the state of consciousness I'm operating in? Am I operating from the left or the right side of the grid? Am I giving it my best shot? These are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves so that we can do the best and create harmony in our lives.
After I took a business colleague to meet Dr. Hewlin and Dr. Vitali and found we have so much in common that we went out on a date that same night. 8 months later, we are more in love than ever. The key is to be with like-minded people and to forgive and transform. Thank you, Dr. Hewlin and Dr. Vitali, for bringing Ho'oponopono to a larger audience. Also, thanks for being the perfect meeting place to meet my love of my life. Chris, the property guy, Stewart.
So again, when we go into a field which is in zero or in equanimity, a lot of things start to rectify and connect within ourselves also. Right? So we can come into that state. And then of course, when we are vibrating at the same frequency, then many things start to happen.
The drive to Austin felt like a vacation after months on the road with the show. Leaving Houston behind was more than a 24-hour break from the all-encompassing universe of a production on tour. It was the juncture of a night of reckoning that would reorder my reality even before the dinner presentation that Dr. Joe Vitale was hosting began. It had been months since I'd last listened to one of Dr. Halekala Hewlin's Ho'oponopono presentations, a year and a half to be exact. Even though I'd never met Joe Vitale before, I felt grateful for the fact he had brought Ihalekala to a location within driving distance, and I could be a part of this event in Austin. As changing scenery and little Texas towns skimmed by the car window en route to Austin, thoughts of other Ho'oponopono presentations surfaced, and things I'd forgotten came back to mind. I flashed back to the first of many times I'd heard Ihalekala speak and had gotten chills down my spine when he read the opening prayer in Hawaiian. I remembered how I'd landed a book contract 2 weeks after taking my first Ho'oponopono training, virtually by just showing up at a publisher's convention, talking, and leaving my card. 2 days later, a publisher called and asked me to submit ideas for a book they were doing. I had the contract by the end of the month.
So again over here, okay, it makes sense to repeat programs. And I attempt to do it all the time, in the sense that when you attend the program for the first time, you get something, but you can implement only a part of what you get. And this is something that we've been finding even with the excursion, that when people repeat the program, they get more from the program that they got through in the first time. Okay, so it becomes very important. And then when you set your mind to going back to the program, a lot that you missed out in the first one, or it was in your subconscious, that starts to hashtag back. So it becomes much more beneficial, right? And then of course, when we are clear, we are clean, then the magic automatically starts happening in our life. So one magic has happened. We've been authorized to conduct the personal development program now. So we are scheduling a PD now. So those of you, I'm sure Gargi is going to post it. So you all can register for that program now.
As the distance to Austin grew shorter, I also reflected on a time just 6 months earlier when a veterinarian in Montreal conveyed the sad news that my dear cat Maya had intestinal lymphoma. It was questionable whether she would live long enough for me to take her from the clinic. When Maya was released, the vet thought that with luck, I'd have a few weeks to tell her goodbye. I contacted Ihaliakala for help with a special cleaning, something to clean whatever this precious little creature had taken on of mine. It is now a year and 3 months since Maya's diagnosis. Little could I have imagined at the moment I was prepared for her imminent departure that months and miles later she would still be with me on tour.
So what is it over here, right? So he said, I contacted Dr. Hugh for help with a special cleaning, something to clean whatever this precious little creature had taken on of mine. So when we have pets, right, many times the pet will uh, take on the load from your field to heal it. There is this book, I keep talking about it also. I mentioned it before, not recently, but How Do the Dogs Know That Their Owner is Coming Home by Rupert Sheldrake. In that, they have given so many stories about what dogs do and how they do it, how they heal, how they know what's going to happen, right? It's true for cats, it's true for any of these pets, because they operate at there is no win. The dog is not selfish or the cat is not selfish. It gives you unconditional love, right? So, how does it operate? So, if you are having a problem, there is a full chance that your pet will take on the load. So this is what he's saying. So then what happens? He cleans himself, and in the process, the cat gets cleaned and healed of whatever it had taken on.
Seeing Ihaliakala again in Austin was like breaking through the surface after being underwater. One of those back in the world kind of experiences. Yet it was also immediate immersion into the most profound, life altering practice. I have experienced in 25 years of delving into everything from Buddhism, Celtic spiritual traditions, traditional psychotherapy, dream analysis, and I was good at that, energy work, and even Wicca.
So
And
what he's saying is experienced a lot of things, but the Dr. Hewlin's workshop really created a shift in him.
And there I was in Austin, face to face with Ho'oponopono again, a philosophy, a tradition that virtually wipes the slate clean of the practices, procedures, and endless analytical activities I'd so diligently studied for so long before it, all in an effort to understand, fix myself, and live the life I came here to live. I have to admit there was a part of me that was ready to jump right in among those who'd never encountered Ho'oponopono before and let them know I already do that. But I started cleaning and the nonsense memories dispersed.
So slight amount of ego coming in, right? And then as soon as he saw that he is going into ego, immediately started cleaning, putting a tool into process and getting back into equanimity, getting back into zero, removing the memories so that you can start connecting with inspiration or getting back into the zero state.
Before Dr. Vitali had even introduced Ihale Kala that evening, a revelation hit me like a bolt of lightning, causing me to jump up from the table where I was sitting and run to the ladies' room, choking back tears. In that moment in Austin, in a room that looked out on the downtown skyline, Ho'oponopono enveloped my being, and I had a moment of clarity when I knew I no longer wanted to be on tour, no matter what. 6 weeks later, Maya the cat and I were heading west en route to Los Angeles, bound for a new home in Topanga Canyon that surfaced just in time for our arrival when the person who was going to take it suddenly decided not to rent it. Another 7 months have passed, and just last week, as I wavered on the edge of yet another significant change, I read a phrase that Ihalekala wrote: Zero is home base. I cleaned and stepped off the edge of another existence I'd known it was now, and now can say that I didn't fall. Thank you for this opportunity to share the changes, revelations, and reflections about Ho'oponopono that surfaced from my trip to Austin in February. POI Elizabeth K. McCall.
So when we are in that zero state, right, many times inspiration simply drops in. So you start really questioning what are you doing? And then you realize that you need to create a shift in your life in what you're doing. In fact, the same thing happened to me. I used to travel 25 days a month doing energy field work and all that. And for some reason, at the end of the day, it became a little boring. It became very repetitive for me. So I shifted and I started going to the office again, and I started, starting up certain small business ventures, etc. And then one day I was just sitting down, I was just going into that open state of mind that I go into when I meditate. And I suddenly realized, and a question popped up in my mind as to when was I happy? And I realized at that time that when I was happy, when I was going around all over the place, learning new things, doing new things, learning new programs, doing energy field rectification, etc. So that at that point in time, in that moment, I actually took a decision that I want to get out of the systems that I had started. So systematically, I've actually made myself redundant in my own office. So I really don't need to go to the office. And now I can spend most of my time doing what I love and I like doing, right? So anything that needed my presence, I let go of. What could run without me is automatically running. So this is the same thing that happened to this lady. She suddenly decided that, no, I don't want to be in tour anymore, and created a shift. The moment we allow ourselves to be in that state, we can actually understand what is our life purpose. We need to start connecting to that. Otherwise, we are going to be running all the time, and half the time, but most of the time, we don't even know why we are running. So that is a question that each one of us needs to ask. What am I doing? What state of consciousness am I operating from? Why am I doing it? What is the reason? What is the end result of what I'm doing? And then figure out what you really want in life. Okay. And then simply gently intend it and then go after it. That's it. I think we can stop here today.